legal system falls silent. The people must speak. Welcome to the BDG's Court of Public Opinion, where truth meets strategy.
Hey, it is your girl, Jodi Lewis, the CEO of the Brand Development Group. And again, we have a special division where we focus on legal case amplification, that is amplifying legal cases. And we are going to be joined by Mark Ferrell, as well as attorney Latoya Francis Williams. Once again, this time we are going to be discussing the arrest, a man that was arrested for being held in contempt for a payment that was made 2 years prior. We have audio, guys. We have the records. Y'all know if I'm on your case, you know we coming with nothing but facts. We don't need reality TV over here. We have nothing but facts to go by. So I'm going to get our guests on camera and we're gonna start this discussion. I'm gonna key it up. You guys, welcome back, Mark. Welcome back, Latoya. Excited to have you guys back. This topic we're going to talk about is interesting. So I'm going to key it up. I'm going to give the audience a little background. So we've left 2002 where a whole bunch of nonsense happened. I'm going to try and choose my words. This episode, a whole bunch of nonsense happened in 2002. You guys can take a look at the previous episode that we've released. Now we are in 2024, where our client, Mr. Ferrell, has been summoned to come to court for a contempt of a child support order. Or I'm sorry, you know what? I'm going to revert back. Our child
family.
Yep.
Family law.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. I'm going to end this.
2002. You said 2002. 2022.
Yes. Okay. Let me redo that. Okay, so we are going to discuss. We've now left 2022, where my client was not properly served, where his company was taken without any evidence. We detailed that in a previous episode, and we're going to fast forward to 2024, where Kelly and her attorney, dare I put that title in front of his name, wants to hold my client Mark Ferrell in contempt. This contempt hearing, we have audio footage, we have obviously documentation, we have a legal expert on that's going to help kind of walk us through how this stuff can happen. But my client, let me paint the picture, is in court. He is telling the judge that he does not have a lawyer. He does not feel comfortable. He's requesting a lawyer. This is a contempt case, so jail is on the table for those that know the bare minimum of law. And he was denied counsel. So many things went on in this court hearing, and we are going to take the time to tell you about it, but also show you the evidence and play the audio. So again, Mark, Latoya, thank you guys for being here. So today we're talking about the moment when Mark got arrested because the judge did not believe that he had already paid back the $420 that he had paid back in 2022. So let's start with this. Mark, you're in court, and how are you feeling that day? Because we have the audio and I want to play the audio, but how are you feeling this day? You're summoned to court. Tell me what's going on in your head. And we're going to play the audio. So just let us know how you're feeling on this particular day.
I was very nervous that day because I didn't have an attorney. This is all new to me. I never spoke, to a judge or answered any questions without an attorney. So I was very nervous at the time. So, when I went in there, I told the judge that I didn't have a counsel. I was trying to, I didn't have any money because everything had been taken from me. I felt like it was biased by, since day one. Everything was illegally taken from me, and I knew this. I knew that much. And I told the judge, I said, listen, I don't want to be seen today. I said, it's been very biased. I said, I don't have the money for an attorney because everything's been taken from me. I said, but can you please allow me to get an attorney? She completely denied me and threw me on the stand.
Okay. And I actually want to play that. Yes, so let's listen.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mr. Ferrell, anything you wanted to say in response, not your testimony, but just by way of a brief opening since you're representing yourself?
Actually, sorry, my mistake. Let me play the right one.
But it's all said and done. The fact remains.
Nope, that's the wrong one. I'm gonna edit this, guys.
All right, Mr. Ferrell, anything you wanted to say in response, not your testimony, but just by way of a brief opening since you're representing yourself before we move to get right into that.
Yeah. I don't have an attorney right now. I'm working on one probably next week, but I wish I could just get an attorney before I come back in the court. I really don't feel comfortable in here because everything has been biased towards me since day one.
That's how the system works. You know, they're biased towards you, you're biased against them. That's how the adversarial system works. But you've been going through attorneys. You had another attorney that never even got to come to court. He was announced.
Well, yeah, I don't have the funds to pay an attorney.
Okay. Well, that's something you'll have to sort out. All right, Mr. So the continuous was denied before today. The continuous is denied today. So, Mr. Nico, we don't need evidence that we've already heard that was under oath not that long ago. So, just put up whatever evidence that you need to put up to support your current contempt.
I'm gonna pause it right there because that's interesting, and I'm gonna bring in Latoya with this one because you can clearly hear in Mark's voice that he is scared. And this always kind of really upsets me because I think that judges sometimes forget that people don't do this every day. Like, this is not their everyday scenario. They're not, attorneys. These are regular citizens that are now up against the judge that has full control over their lives. And you can just literally hear in Mark's voice how scared he was. And he literally says, I need an attorney. I don't have an attorney. I can't afford an attorney. What are your thoughts on this?
Right. So there's a little nugget that I think it's important to even add to this mix. What you can't hear and what you don't know is by this point, the judge has taken everything from Mr. Ferrell, his job, his livelihood, his reputation, his money, his everything. And Mr. Ferrell at this point had already filed a complaint against the judge for being biased. And so when the judge says, I'm going to deny you the right to counsel, knowing that she wanted to arrest him that day, and to say that this is a part of the adversarial system, well, number one, that's not true. If the court has an inkling that it is going to snatch your liberty, the court is supposed to take leaps and bounds to not only advise you of what could happen, of your right to counsel, what could happen if you show up without counsel. And so it just so happens that not only does he say, I don't feel comfortable, I don't have an attorney, I can't afford an attorney. Well, I can't afford an attorney because you took everything from me.
Yes.
But the court almost thumbed its nose at the system and mocked him. The fact that he believed, and rightfully so, that the system was biased against him. Remember, this is the same judge that held an emergency hearing without him, that held a hearing when he did not have notice to even appear. So this ball started rolling down the hill from a lie from Ms. Potter and her counsel. But at the behest of Ms. Potter, this court snatched everything from him. So the man only asked for representation. And the judge says, no, this is about the adversarial system. And I suppose in this judge's book, the only way the adversarial system can actually work is if one person does not have an attorney. So she can throw the book at him, which is what she did here today. It was horrendous. I couldn't imagine being in Mr. Ferrell's position. I said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I commend this man for having the patience and the actual ability to get through what he's been gone through.
Yeah, and it's what's interesting. So let me just, for the audience, this hearing happened January 2024.
Correct.
So this hearing happened January 2024. So what we're going to hear next is basically Kelly's attorney. We're going to do the earmarks. Kelly's attorney asking a series of questions regarding the $420,000. Whereas, and I'm not going to spoil it, maybe we should just play the audio here. Hopefully it's keyed up. Let's see here.
Call Mr. Ferrell to the stand, please.
All right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ferrell. You were in court. Of course. You were correct. And during that Ferrell asked you to restore the amounts that you admittedly withdrew from managing Workforce accounts, correct? And you did not restore the funds in total within 10 days as ordered, correct?
No, it's not correct. Please return.
What was returned?
The funds.
You returned $420,000?
Then a long time ago.
Okay, you have paperwork to show that?
Well, not with me, but I can get it.
Okay, well, today's your court date, so if you had it, you would have brought it.
Now, the court.
All right, Mr. Ferrell, you're under oath, so if you wanted to tell the court anything on your behalf.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So let's just pause it there, right? So what we just heard is the lawyer basically say, hey, you haven't returned the $420,000 that you were supposed to return 2 years ago in 2022. And you say that's incorrect. I've already paid that back 2 years ago.
Correct.
And the judge says, well, you have? Like, she seemed stunned because clearly she was surprised that you actually, kept your word. And so the judge then questions you about whether you paid this money back. And she says, can you prove it today? And you said, well, no, I can't, because you didn't know you had to prove this today, correct?
Correct.
So you didn't have the documentation with you, correct?
Correct.
And then the judge proceeds to say, yeah, well, today's your court hearing and you don't have the documentation. Oh, well, correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
And can I interject something? The judge did even worse than that. When Mr. Ferrell said that money had been restored, and restored is important because he never stole $420,000. That is a fact that the court was just glossing over. Nevertheless, the court had asked Mr. Ferrell, unbeknownst to him, because he wasn't in court, he wasn't served, within 10 days to restore $420,000. The court just said, we heard, if you had it, you would have brought it with you. Now, this is after the man asked for a postponement. This is after he asked for counsel. So now the court is mocking this litigant, pro se, and said, if you had it, you would have brought it. Now, the reality is, and obviously we have documentation, right? Because as we say, the faintest ink is stronger than the strongest memory, and the documents don't lie. But the reality is, and I know we're going to show the audience, that not only was this money restored to his own account, the joint account that Potter had always had access to, but the text messages show that not only did Potter acknowledge it, from 2022, before the first court date, where the court ordered $420,000 be restored to this joint account. So the judge, again, Mr. Ferrell is 100% correct, was biased against him. But more importantly, Kelly Potter sat in court knowing otherwise, knowing that she had this money, knowing the money was paid directly to her, and of course we'll show the documentation, knowing that $420,000 was never taken from this account, but nevertheless, knowing Mr. Ferrell had paid this money, restored it back to an account, all the while still paying to have the building projects moving forward. All the while she had access to all of these accounts. All the while the operating agreement was still in effect. She sat in court in 2024 and pushed this narrative that somehow she had no idea where this money was. So again, when Mr. Ferrell says Bravo's hands are not clean, Kelly's hands are not clean, the court clerk's hands are not clean, and Judge Bill's hands are not clean, this is not something he's making up. This is fact. And again, we like fact over fiction. But
we do.
I had to that because it is critical that the audience understands this man never took money improperly from his business account. Never happened. Kelly, on the other hand, and that's why the operating agreement was put into effect. But even before he had any idea that the court was taking action against him, he had already restored that money to the account because he was going on with the building. And he was going on and he felt confident that Kelly was going to not misspend and misappropriate as she was doing before the funds from the building fund. But I had to interject that. I apologize.
No. Please, always interject. Always interject.
And I got one. Let me interject one time too. Judge Bills was very biased, and I felt that, since day one. It was a situation where I was in court, and she allowed me to go get the title to my food truck. The same situation that we're talking about right now. I was in court on the stand, and Kelly's attorney, from out of nowhere, just like the 420 from out of nowhere, they asked me where was the title to the food truck. I said, "What are you asking me that for?" They said, "Because Kelly can't get the tag without the title. Kelly had stolen the food truck out the parking lot," which you got the video of that. And I don't know where it's at to this day. The judge allowed me, and she threatened me, which we all got evidence, in the documents. She threatened me if I didn't go get the title to that food truck, she was going to lock me up. So that's an example of the bias, because she didn't allow me to go get the title to the 420. I mean, the paperwork to the 420, but she let me get the title to the food truck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So she had the opportunity to say, okay, you know what, we're going to take a recess, and we're going to allow you to produce documentation to prove that you, in fact, repaid this $420,000 2 years ago. She didn't do that. She says, yeah, no, bro, you ain't got it. You going to jail. And you then proceeded to go to jail. There's more to that. But before we get to that, I do want to show something that's very interesting. Your business manager, and I'm going to just pull it up. Your business manager from RB Financial actually sent a letter confirming that he actually told Kelly and Kelly's attorney that the payment was made in full November of 2022. So what this is a letter from your business manager basically saying, look, I told them back in 2022 that this money would have been paid back in full into the account. What's interesting is that why would he even need to tell her that? She has access to the account, so she would see the funds rolling in. Matter of fact, we can see the funds rolling in, and now the public can see the funds rolling in because we actually have record of all of the funds being returned to that account. And if you see the date here, December 6, 2022, it was paid back in full, not $420,000, but $429,000 was paid back into that account in full in 2022. However, you went to jail in 2024 for funds that were paid back in 2022. Now, Latoya, my legal friend here, what is happening? Like what is happening here? What is happening? Help me understand. Help me as Kevin Hart said. Help me.
Listen, though I've dubbed myself the legal genius, you don't have to be a legal genius to figure this one out. Judge Bills definitely had every intention of sending Mr. Ferrell to jail on that day. Right. Kelly Potter definitely wanted Mr. Ferrell to go to jail on that day. But what happened is that Mr. Ferrell, 2 years prior, had been moving along with his business affairs and had already restored that account to the tune of $429,000. Now, I want us to really be clear on what he did, despite not even knowing that there was an order out there, because he was not given notice of being in court, and he wasn't in court. The court held an ex parte hearing. But despite that, the court has a hearing in 2024 and says, I believe you were in contempt, and within 10 days of my hearing that you had not attended and the court clerk never gave you notice of, within 10 days, I wasn't satisfied that you paid back or you restored the $420,000. The reality is that money was restored. The reality is that money was restored directly to Kelly Potter, and the judge's purge order says that much. But the court, nevertheless, on the hearing said, I don't care, I'm going to lock you up. I cannot think of another jurisdiction in this country where a petition for contempt is heard. And on the day in question, the matter, the thing to have been done has already been proven to have been done, and the court locks you up anyway. I've not seen nor heard, state nor federal, any jurisdiction where the court says, I asked you to restore $420,000 and you said that you did. I'm not going to give you an opportunity to demonstrate that you actually did that. I'm going to railroad you. You've got to really question the ethics of someone sitting on the bench that would take the time and incarcerate someone over a substantial funds that they said that they had already restored. That's a big amount of money. And the reality is not only was Mr. Ferrell vindicated, because the same document that he was asking to retrieve was in fact retrieved. Took 41 days. Kelly could have done it because Kelly's been on the bank account. Kelly could have done it because Kelly was paid the money directly, and the court order says so. But Mr. Ferrell wasn't released from jail for 41 days until the court was satisfied that he proved that, in fact, he had restored that account over 2 years prior. So this man sat in jail because Kelly Potter continued to assert this false narrative. The insult to injury is even worse than what we're presenting. Because to date, despite the court issuing an order in black and white saying that the $420,000 had been restored since 2022, this woman, Kelly Potter, is trying to collect a $420,000 plus judgment under the false pretense that the money had never been restored. If that's not shady, I don't know what it is.
You know what? You touched on it. You touched on it, and I want to say this really quickly because I also want to pull up the purge order, which I know you're happy to share. I want to touch on this because it's interesting. So when Mark was then held in contempt and taken out of court, arrested and put in jail for over 40 plus days, he had to then rely on his aging parents to go out and find an attorney. So you have to pay more money or get someone else to pay money to go out and get an attorney. That attorney's job was now to prove that he had paid the $420,000. But that was easy to prove because, again, there's financial records. The business manager said it had been paid back. And so the attorney then sends the information to the judge and to Kelly's attorney, and then he was finally able to purge himself out of jail. And I want to put this up, and I want you to walk the audience through this document and why it's so important.
This is important because this is the judge that we just heard, Judge Bills. This is her what we call a purge order. This is her acknowledging on the record and for all to see. Not only had Mr. Ferrell reimbursed, restored, whatever word we want to use, $420,000 plus dollars. He had done so since 2022. And here's the important part. I'm going to direct your attention to paragraph number, the second paragraph down, but under number 1. The court found in its order, filed January 12, 2024, that respondent, that's Mr. Ferrell, had not complied with the final order entered on June 17, 2022. Again, the court date that he never had notice of and he wasn't present for. Go all the way down. Next paragraph, respondent shows, again, that's Mr. Ferrell, that respondent made payments directly to petitioner via numerous wire transfers before the date of this court's order for contempt on January 12, 2024. And the final order entered January 17, 2022. Why is that important? I mean, we'll get to the dollar amount, but why is that important? This judge found, despite not letting Mr. Ferrell go and get the actual documentation, but when the same documents were finally given to her, she found that Mr. Ferrell had paid this money directly to Kelly Potter in 2022. Kelly Potter received over $420,000 in 2022, yet sat in court in 23, in 24, and pretended that she not only did not receive this money, again, she is parroting this narrative for the purposes of, I don't know, fame and fortune, but this narrative that somehow $420,000 was stolen, it was not, but that it wasn't restored, it was, but it was restored directly to her. That's the judge's finding as a matter of law and as a matter of fact. The reason we say the insult to injury is this. As we sit here today, we are now in 2025, and we talk about restorative justice. But in 2025, Kelly Potter is trying to now collect on a judgment that asserts $420,000 is owed to her. The court has given you in writing that that money was given to you since 2022. You're not entitled to it. You didn't earn it. Lawfully, you shouldn't have gotten it, because as we can see from your text message, the money was never, quote, taken from you, nor Nana's chicken and waffles. But nevertheless, we're working on purging the unlawful judgment. But to date, for Miss Potter to sit around and to benefit and slander my client's name, that is the insult to injury. This woman to date is trying to collect on a $420,000 judgment that the judge has now said, as a matter of law and as a matter of fact, was restored to her directly since 2022. That in the law is what we call wicked. That's what we call that.
Yes, there's a reggae song that I should play. That really speaks to that, and I feel like when we heard this, I know that my mind was blown to see the clip on Bravo where she says, "Yeah, he took not even 420,
$500,000.
He took." Baffling. To see the evidence is baffling. So we've established that he did not steal money. We established that he safeguarded money from misspending. In the previous episode, if you're just watching this one, watch the previous one. We've established that once an operational agreement was found and they agreed on a way forward, he felt comfortable enough to start putting that money he safeguarded back into the account. We've also established that that money was paid back in the account back in 2022. Fast forward to 2024. This man is now in jail, has to come out the pocket again for an attorney to get himself out of jail to prove what he has already done.
Right.
You know, and just a question for you, Mark. Did you ever receive an apology for going to jail for something?
No, not from her team, not from the judge. No one. They just let me out, and everybody went on with their life.
Well, you know what? How about from Bravo, Real Housewives of Atlanta, that keeps pushing this narrative that Mark stole money from his business? Why doesn't Bravo? Because Bravo has a fiduciary duty and an obligation to look through the court files and look through the court record. That is a public order. That is a public filing where the court said since 2022, this money had been restored. Now, we'll get into whether the money should have been restored or not. That's not the point. The point is the judge order says that that money not only had been restored, but was paid directly to Kelly Potter. And Bravo continues to air and re-air and republish in print, right? And in episodes in the reunion that somehow, quote, this money was never returned or that this money was stolen. It's simply false. And while the cease and desist had gone out, and while they'd been asked to stop publishing and republishing this false narrative and holding Mr. Ferrell in a false light, they continue to do it for ratings. So again, I use the word restorative justice because, as Mr. Ferrell said before, their hands are not clean. They know very well that this man did not steal any money, but whatever you want to think about that, that money had been restored directly to Kelly based on her lies, but directly to Kelly since 2022, says Judge Bills.
And so much more came out of this particular court hearing because and we don't have to get because I think this needs a whole separate episode on its own because we have audio footage, audio of while he was locked up, the judge ordered him to sell his home. And I need the audience, and I honestly, I got to censor myself for this one. I need the audience to hear me when I say, imagine you buy a home. The home is in your name, not just the deed, but the mortgage. You're making the mortgage payments. The home is literally in your name. The judge orders, and there's audio of this, the judge orders my client to sell his home as he's in jail, like as he's going to jail that same day. They're like, yeah, go sell the home. And the judge says, well, why haven't you sold it yet? I've ordered you to sell the home. And her lawyer, Kelly Potter's lawyer, says, oh, well, because it's in his name, we need him to sell the home. So the judge says, well, he's in contempt because he didn't sell his home that is in his name. It is beyond me. So this man goes to jail for money that he already restored back into a joint account, business account, an account that was solely in his name. Kelly was on the account just merely as a signer. And while in jail, he is forced to sell his home. And he is prevented from even going back to the home. So even when he gets out of jail 40 plus days later, the home is now sold. And he was only allowed to go and get a few trash bags worth of stuff that his ex-wife left him. This is going to be another episode because we have photos, guys. Look, we have photos of Kelly and her bandit, her misfits, the people that thought that she was right, assisting her with going to that home that wasn't in her name, the mortgage or the deed, a home that she had left 2 years prior. Correct, Mark?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
She had left the home 2 years prior. So, Mark, you were living in that home prior to going to jail. So when you went to jail, that was your home.
That was my home, yes.
And when you came out of jail, you had no home.
No, I had no home. Matter of fact, when they booked me, I was in booking, and they served me some documents and said that I could not go back to my home. And the only way I go back to my home, I only was allowed 30 minutes to go in my home and get my belongings. When I was incarcerated, my family was allowed to go to my home and get only my clothes. And Kelly them had put all my clothes in trash bags. Everything else is missing to this day. I never seen nothing in my home since that day I got out of jail. Nothing. All my personal heirlooms, everything is gone. I never saw it again.
Lord, she's not Kelly. Latoya, kick in here. I know I said we need a whole new episode, but since we're talking about this, how does this?
It honestly.
I'm gonna find some of the photos since we're talking about it. I'm gonna upload some of these photos.
If we did not have hard, objective documentation and the audio that this actually happened to Mr. Ferrell, again, the origin of all of this is Kelly Potter misspending building fund money that's earmarked to build out a brick and mortar. And when the actual business advisor said, hey, please, Mr. Ferrell, safe harbor this money until we can get this operating agreement together and signed. That's where all this comes from. That's where all this comes from. Kelly's attorney used the word out of spite. You want to talk about a woman scorned because she wasn't able to be a spendthrift. She wasn't able to spend down the money that was earmarked for the actual construction of a new brick and mortar or two new brick and mortars. She ran to court in the middle of negotiating and dealing with the operating agreement and signing the operating agreement. She ran to court and lied on Mr. Ferrell. That's where this begins. So now we have a man that is incarcerated over a sum of money that had been restored 2 years prior. For the judge to say, look, while you're in jail, I'm going to now render you homeless. Again, it's beyond the pale. But when you really think about it, this judge was complained on. So the vindictiveness of the conduct of the judge, it has a home. See, Mr. Ferrell complained about this judge. Did she recuse herself? She did not. She wanted to make sure that she kicked him while he was down. That's where we are. So, again, my legal brain kicks in, and I wonder, how could this be so? The home wasn't forced to be sold in a divorce decree. The divorce hadn't been rendered final as yet. The judge simply said, I want you homeless. That's really what this boils down to. And Kelly sat back and said, me too.
Yeah, you know what? Let me interject with that. And Latoya, this is a question for you. I'm not an attorney, but I did a lot of homework because I've been through a lot of damage, right? First of all, Judge Bills has nothing to do with that money. That $420,000, that's between, for example, Latoya let me borrow $420,000, right? That's between me, Latoya, and Kelly. Judge Bills had nothing to do with that money. Is that correct?
Well, it's correct. But remember, Kelly lied and said money was stolen from the business account. And but you're 100% correct. Where the judge does not do her due diligence and demand actual objective documentation and railroads you, the judge inserted herself into what the operating agreement said it was supposed to control: the business, the members, the two members of the business. It was one, just you, and then you allow Kelly to come in as 50% owner. But I don't disagree with you that the court really didn't have the right to do and to take from you as it did with absolutely no evidence. Emergency petition stage, right, on a regular track stage, the court didn't have the right to do that. But here's the bigger: you were never served. The court didn't have jurisdiction over the subject matter or you or your business.
Till this day.
So to this day, you were never served. So the court railroading you and then demanding proof within 10 days, knowing that you were not in court, and the clerk of courts not sending you the actual notice for you to even do anything any different than you had been doing within the so-called 10 days. And then 2 years later to turn around and say, well, you don't have an attorney because I took everything from you. But if you actually restore this $420,000, you would have walked with the documentation today, right? For the court to do that and lock you up is beyond absurd. You know, in some jurisdictions, the judicial disabilities would have removed this judge from the bench already. But here are the photos.
And while I mean, I just downloaded a few really quickly for the purposes of this conversation, but you know, just to give some color to this, this is Kelly and her team, let's just call it her team, going to a home that she had moved out of 2 years prior, a home that was not in her name, a home that Mark lived in, went to court, you know, left his home, went to court and came, you know, when he got out of court, that was no longer his home. Literally put his stuff in trash bags. I do have that picture as well, that we can edit in here so people can see. So, I mean, so much came out of both of these hearings that is far beyond my belief and understanding, because it just seems so unfair. And Mark, again, all of this is so, you know, I couldn't imagine going through what you've gone through. And as Latoya mentioned earlier, you know, we have to tip our hats, because as astute as I am and as astute as Latoya is, I don't think that I could have came through this as elegantly as you have. And I think that Kelly was counting on you remaining silent. I think she was counting on you remaining homeless or destitute or without, which again is a whole conversation, a different conversation we need to have, and why you would want the father of 3 of your children to not be able to work and provide and have adequate living so your children can enjoy their space. Why would you advocate for this man to be in such disarray? I do not understand it. I do not understand how you can sit and watch this man go to jail for something that he's already paid back. I do not understand why in 2025 you are trying to still garnish an amount of money you know that you got. And what's interesting is that, and we've said this publicly before, the $420,000 was funds from loans and other things. So he still carries the debt.
Right.
He still carries the debt from the money he repaid you 2 years ago. He still carries a debt. And we know from other reports that have come out that Kelly is being sued by Navy Federal and other people. So we know that she's not the best when it comes to paying her bills and her debts, you know, not to throw daggers, but this is public information, you know. So I do not, I will never understand it. And you know, I don't want to make it too much longer, so we are going to wrap. But again, kudos to you, Mark, for pressing on. Kudos for you. And I get questions all the time. Why now? Why is he just now saying anything? And I have to remind the audience. At the end of the day, this man lost everything. He
Right.
didn't have money for an attorney. You think that attorneys are just walking around trying to take free work, or people are just trying to help you for free just for the sake? It doesn't work like that. Kelly Potter has had the luxury of a major network pushing her lies and her narrative. And unfortunately, Mark did not have that luxury. And so now he has a team behind him that is solely focused on getting out the facts. And as I said in the last episode, I admire the fact that Mark has maintained that he does believe that his wife deserves 50%. I will say, if my husband did what your wife did, I would never utter that he deserved 50%. But he does. This is a great guy. So kudos to you. Kudos for you for maintaining that stance, even after all the things that she's done to you. You still don't want to see this woman out here destitute and homeless as what she did to you. So kudos to you. Any final words before we wrap up?
No, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, I just want justice for what they did to me. You hear the story. For all the people out there with the negative comments and all that, these women on here with me right now, they wouldn't waste their time. They got lives of their own. They would not waste their time and come on here and be telling lies to be trying to defend me. So you should know that it's true what I'm doing, and we got all the paperwork to show it. Everything we have is true.
Yeah.
Latoya?
The only last words that I would have is fact over fiction. Fact over fiction. I encourage everyone to read Judge Bill's purge order, acknowledging that the $420,000 plus was paid directly to Kelly since 2022. Despite Mr. Ferrell going through the very degrading, dehumanizing process of being dragged through the court system, we talk about restorative justice, and I know we're in the court of public opinion on this platform, but again, fact over fiction. And we understand that our job and our task as his team is to hold Bravo accountable, hold NBC Universal accountable, hold the clerk of courts accountable, hold Judge Bills accountable, hold Kelly Potter accountable, and get this restorative justice for our client. Because Rockdale County Superior Court could not and should not have these types of ongoings stretched over such a length of time. Rockdale County in Georgia should not stand for this conduct. Rockdale County has to learn this very valuable lesson. This man is going to get restorative justice. Those are my final words.
Thank you guys so much for joining. And of course, we will do another episode. We're committed to doing this until you guys get it. So we'll be discussing other facts, specifically as it pertains to Mark's case. And we look forward to getting out those facts. Before I wrap up, I do want to just also kind of acknowledge the importance, after being accused of lying and stealing for so many years, I think it's so critical that the public needs to understand the only thing that Mark wants out there is the truth and the facts. And I hear this man constantly say, like, I have all the paperwork. I have it. I have everything. I have it all in writing. You can see it all. He's so open and so transparent. And that's, that's also kind of guiding us in how we navigate this case with him and for him and on his behalf, because we understand that this man has been lied on and talked about in the most ruthless way. I mean, hundreds of thousands, millions of views around the world, not just in America, not just nationally, but internationally. People are seeing this show. And the only thing that he's saying is, I have all of the evidence. I have all of it. Just listen. So that is it, you guys. We're going to wrap up this. Again, my name is Jodi Lewis, CEO of the Brand Development Group, and we are looking forward to the next episode.
When the legal system falls silent, the people must speak. Welcome to the BDG's Court of Public Opinion, where truth meets strategy.